Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tuesday's Post. Today we went a little bit farther with the first step in Sun Tzu's process of defeating an enemy, which this test is, because it has led you to believe that maybe you're not as good as somebody else, or maybe you don't have some sort of value because you're not as far along in your process or your development as other people are. I gave one class at least the analogy that I go play basketball once a week, and there's a guy there who teaches phys ed who plays and practices in the gym an hour every day after school, and I only play once a week. He's a lot better than I am. And it's because he practices more and has practiced more for a very long time. That doesn't mean that if I put in the same amount of effort and time, I couldn't even be better than he is. But right now I'm not, because I'm not in the same spot in my process. Remember, this test isn't your value. And it isn't your ceiling. It isn't the highest you can achieve, and if you don't, you're dumb. That's not what this is. This is analyzing where you are in the process. So because of what it's made you feel about yourself, and what it's made you think about school, and about... This is our enemy. And Sun Tzu says the first step to defeating an enemy is knowing your enemy. Well, today was all about knowing our enemy, and coming up with a strategy to defeat that enemy. See, we're not going to know the specifics of the exam until we all see it on the exact same day, myself included. I won't know the questions, I won't know, but we can know the types of things that they're looking for and what their expectations are for us when we are communicating that we comprehend the reading and that we can put forth a main idea that has some thought and can support it. So today's a little bit difficult because it's going to require you to go back and forth to a couple of different things. The first thing is the packet that you received yesterday. You can always go back to yesterday's post if you want to pause this right here. Go back to yesterday's post, go to the bottom, download and print that packet, print it out, put it in front of you. Today, you received this Strategies for Success sheet. If you need to, if you missed it, if you forgot to bring it home, pause it, head to the bottom of this post, download it, print it, you can have it right in front of you. I'm going to have one of the things up, and then I'm going to be flip-flopping back and forth as to, what I'm going after and what I'm asking you to do with all of this. Okay, so please try to follow along with me. I'm going to do my best to make it not confusing, but I want to match up your expectations, the state's expectations, and my expectations. I want to get them all on the same page so that we can really, really, truly do the best we possibly can do on this assessment. So I showed you this first in class. It shows you exactly what to expect on each day. You see, on day 1, we've got 90 minutes for 6 passages and 42 multiple choice questions. There's no short response, no extended response. You have 90 minutes, 6 passages. We did the math, we figured out that's 15 minutes a passage. Well, you have a strategy. On this Strategies for Success sheet, it gives you a 12-minute process for going through these passages and answering the questions. Well, that leaves you with 3 minutes of a buffer time, some wiggle room, if one passage is really hard for you, or if one passage is a little bit longer. Or, if you fully stay on task the whole time, you have 18 minutes, do the quick math, okay, 6 times 12 equals 72 minutes, 90 minus 72, 18 minutes at the end to go back and recheck. Maybe make sure that all those things that you said you would freak out if you didn't have enough time to do, like making sure your Scantron's in right order, making sure you've actually transferred your answers correctly, all of that stuff. It gives you that time so you don't have to freak out. And you don't have to cloud your mind with worrying about time because you got enough stuff to think about. Day 2. One more passage. Okay, eliminates about 12 minutes. One more passage, 7 multiple choice questions. Again, 12 minutes, use the process. The process, we remember, is skim the passage. And we know that skim is reading. We're just not stopping when we don't understand something. We're reading it all the way through for the main idea, the overall effect. Then, we go in and we skim the questions and the answers. Do not answer. Do not answer them at the time. You are just reading through those to get a context of what you're reading the article or story or poem for. Then when you go back, do not hunt and peck. This is what Mrs. Burns was talking about and saying why you shouldn't read the questions first. What she means is, you can't be flipping back and forth from story to question to story to question to story to question. Otherwise, you don't really read for an understanding, which means you can't connect, which means that everything is in a jumble. And we talked in class today that when I used to take multiple choice tests, there used to be one ridiculous answer. There used to be one kind of far out there answer, and I would have to choose between two pretty good answers, but there was usually one clear right answer. Now, they do try to trick you a little bit to see how much you actually know. On a lot of these questions, there are 4 seemingly legit answers, which means that you can't just hunt and peck, read a question, go to the text and be like, oh, I found it, and be sure of your answer. You have to go back through and actually fully read, and only then can you go back and answer the actual questions. We'll get time to practice that and go over it a little bit more fully in the next couple of days, but I wanted to get it established so that you know that there is a plan for attacking these. Now, short response and extended response. You'll see that that happens on day 2 and day 3. And you'll notice there's multiple passages and multiple short answer response and extended response questions. Now, you can bet that for each of these extended response questions, they are going to have you compare at least 2 passages. It just always happens that way. Well, let's move on then. Now that you know what's happening. Okay, day 2, you've got 2 passages beyond the first one that was just all multiple choice to do 3 short answer response and 1 extended response. Day 3, 3 passages total, 5 short answer response questions. I'd expect that one of them is going to stand alone, and the other 2 will probably be used as your extended response for the day. Okay? I've provided the link to this packet that I received as a teacher. The link to this packet is in the post. Follow it. This is like the last 4 pages. I'm going to head over to the mouse and I'm going to scroll down a little bit so you can see the rubric for the 2-point response. Your short answer response questions will be graded based on this rubric. Okay? This particular rubric is a 2-point rubric. Now, you and I both know that when we're writing, our main goal is connection. That's what we write for. That's why we write. We write to communicate a main idea to an audience and make that connection as our purpose over the main idea. Okay? Hopefully that's really, really a lot of review for you. Well, then we have to remember that a human being is actually going to pick this up and read it. Which means that we have to make this sound human, but we also have to make sure we accomplish the task and we give sufficient evidence. This isn't a computer program. This is a person reading to make sure that you can make a claim and support it. So take a look at what goes into a 2-point score. I'm not even going to worry about 1 point or 0 point because you're not going to get 1 point or 0 point because you're going to follow our strategies that we have. Take a look at the features of a 2-point response in it's the front page of the packet you got yesterday. Valid inferences and or claims from the text where required by the prompt. The prompt is the question. Well, the question is what's going to ask you to make an inference or a claim. So the strategy I gave you on your strategy sheet, which you got today, again at the bottom of this post if you need it, is RSQ and give a very basic answer. When a question's asked of us, our thesis statement, our main idea that we need to communicate to an audience, is going to be the answer to that question. It's logic. It makes sense. Well, if we RSQ and give a very basic answer, haven't we done that? Made our inference or claim where required by the prompt? And haven't we provided a solid main idea that we need to support now? Pretty easy. You've done it all year. Next, evidence of analysis of the text where required by the prompt. Okay, evidence. Well, we talked last week, and pretty much all year, but got a refresher last week, that evidence should come directly from the text that we read. Because they're the experts, right? We're not. So I had you repeat over and over this 5-word phrase. In the passage it states. This allows the reader to know that you didn't just grab these ideas out of nowhere. You took from an expert in the text. Now, if you take directly from the text, lift words as they appear directly in the text, out of the text, and put it in your answer, that's probably the best proof you can give. Put quotation marks around it to let the reader know that you got it from the text. Well, if the text itself is kind of wonky for fitting your purposes, meaning it kind of is disjointed, remember that our ultimate goal is quality, effective communication. And so we might need to put some of these things in our own words. When we do that, we still say in the passage it states, because it lets the reader know that even though this is our own words, we got it directly from the text. But notice what it says. Relevant facts, definitions, concrete details, other information from the text to develop response according to the requirements of the prompt. So the supporting details should support the main idea, the thesis. If they don't, why include them? But look, sufficient number of facts, definitions, concrete details, and or other information in the text as required by the prompt. If it asks for details, plural, S plural, you need more than one. You need at least two. You probably don't need to use 3 or 4 for short answer response, but you definitely need to use at least 2 if they ask for examples, plural. Take a look at this bottom one. Complete sentences where errors do not impact readability. Guys, it needs to be readable. It can't sound like a computer came up with this. So take a look at the strategy. Number 1, RSQ and give a very basic answer. Number 2, include a quote from the passage. Make sure it supports your answer. If you can use a direct quote, do it. Number 3, this is where it comes in, readability comes in. Link your thoughts if it's necessary. If your 2 quotes don't really fit together very well and they make it really jumbled or disjointed, link your thoughts using your own words, using your own sentence. Then the next sentence, use another quote.
Please
in the passage it states, come up with it. If your response needs something to tie it all together, you can provide a quality conclusion. So that means that you're at the very least going to have 3 sentences for each short response. And at the very most, you're going to have 5 sentences. You don't need more than that. That is sufficient evidence. If it says details and you include 2, and you've made your main point, your thesis, and you've supported it, you're in great shape. Guys, everybody should be able to get a 2. We follow the strategies for success. We already have the rubric. We're in good shape. Now, the extended response question is a little bit trickier, but still part of a formula. Now you notice, and I think this is the wrong direction. Yeah, so I'm going to have to, so ignore what's up on the screen right now. I'm just using it so that I can read it, but you have it right in front of you. And I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading all of this. We've read it in class, number 1, and number 2, you can read it in front of you. But I want you to notice some key things that come up. Words like content, words like organization, words like vocabulary, meaning word choice. It talks about a sense of voice. Okay? We're talking about conventions and how information flows from one piece to the next. That's how to get a 4. Guys, isn't that the exact same stuff we've been doing all year? The 6 traits of quality writing? Go back to Unit 1 packet. Refresh your memory about what all that is. Remember, a reader is going to pick this up and read it, and you're trying to make a connection to them. The purpose of writing doesn't change because the setting of your writing changes. What I mean by that is, just because you're taking a test doesn't mean you should ignore all the things that you would follow if you were trying to make a reader actually read this. The person who's reading and grading your assessment is going to read like over 100 of the same question and answer. What that means is, treat them like a person. Be an author. Organize your stuff. If you've got, and we'll go over this in greater detail next week when we actually start writing our extended responses. But I want to make sure you know that whether it's a short answer response or an extended response, you still need a thesis statement, a main idea that you're going to connect to a reader about and communicate clearly to. And remember that they're a person who's an audience member who's reading it. We tend to forget that when we're in a test setting. Don't forget that. Go over these rubrics again. Notice how all of them have to do with readability, main idea, establishing a thesis, and supporting it. Guys, that's what we've been doing the whole time. More on this later this week, next week. Some of the classes got to practice skim, read, answer as a strategy. You'll all get to practice in the next couple days. Don't worry, but I wanted to get this out there because hopefully your fears have gone from here to like here in the last 2 days. This lets us just focus on the task at hand and move forward. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for watching this to the end. I know it was a little bit longer today, but I wanted to make sure I got through everything for those of you who are confused today or who weren't actually in class today. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.